Pætheon presents What Came Out, The Origins of the Fastbrækers, written and read by the author, Andrew Stewart Bergerson. Based on real events. Hugo and the Ratsnake Soup. The Fortune House was a ramshackle inn close to the east gate. Several additions jutted out of its two-story wooden structure. It looked cobbled together. A half-timbered building with mismatched windows, a hitching post that any horse could rip out of the ground. The makeshift porch seemed poised to collapse. While a squad of crusaders were relentlessly tracking Sanam's murder ever closer to the fairy glen, 3 justicars stood on a dark street, Javos, Qiānfān, and I. A bass gong resonated the first hour of morning. A time for clandestine meetings, I thought to myself. The building was recessed back from the street by a kind of half-plaza. We stood on the edge, where the stone pavement of the main road met the rough earth of the yard. From the smell of the dirt, visitors had left horses and dogs to wait unattended by their masters. The frontage was empty now, save for the vermin who scurried inside to herald our arrival. Beady red eyes glared out at us from cracks in the wood that came from years of neglect. Behind heavy curtains, single candles cast dancing shapes on the ground at our feet. "Well, that's about what I expected," Qiānfān said. "Are you familiar with the place?" "Like the back of my hand." Javos folded them neatly behind him. "It's a haven for thieves and cutthroats," I explained. "We raid it several times a month." "Who runs it?" "2 petty crooks, Hugo Arziki and his wife." "Are they fortune-tellers?" Javos took out his wand of binding. "Fortune hunters." "Mistress Arziki will read your cards," I explained. "I prefer not to test the fates," Qiānfān replied. "Their filthy paws are everywhere," Javos added. "Paws?" "Rakumi hyenas," I warned. "Giant hyenas, big as a man." Qiānfān shook his head. "I never thought police work would involve so much fur." "Flea-ridden beasts," Javos cursed, spinning his wand. "Is that legal?" "Animals are given more latitude in the lands of Sire," I explained. "Not here in the Armor Kingdom. Animals cannot own property or run a business." "It's the palm reading." A sign directed customers around the alleyway to the west. "They acquired an imperial license. It allows them to open a shop anywhere in the 5 lands." "It was forged." The words soured Javos's face. "Surely there's some health violation." "The inspector lets them stay open," I explained. "Pardon me, our inspector?" Javos laughed at the joke. "If you leave out cheese," he quoted the local proverb, "you can always find mice." "Or rats," I added cynically, meaning the Alanis clan. Qiānfān stretched his shoulders and cracked his knuckles. "All right, let's get this over with." Captain Huang had a wide kind of gait, like a bear. He stepped loudly on the creaky wooden porch, as if to announce our arrival, and entered the Fortune House without knocking. Javos snapped his wand in his hands. "You do the talking, detective." After my shameful loss of faith at the sting operation the week before, I wanted to show Javos that he could rely on me. I followed Qiānfān with as much bravado as I could muster. We entered the large tavern room. An odd assortment of chairs and tables and a crude bar were distributed around the old wooden posts that held up the second floor. Windows were curtained, and everyone looked at us from their corners. Many scrambled for the exits once they saw the young inspector. His reputation had been well established at Ying's. Now Javos himself stood before them, upright and stalwart against the sagging doorway, as brilliant as he was merciless. There was a mix of locals and foreigners. every cat burglar or shoplifter, bandit or brigand, truant or fugitive left in town. Through the kitchen, past the gambling room, out the back, around the outhouses, into Mistress Arziki's parlor of destiny, and along the alleyway. They flushed out the cracks in the fortune house like water in a sieve. Some even ran upstairs to climb out the windows. Not the were-rats. They stayed seated around a large round table in the middle of the tavern. Half-smoked cigars smoldered in ashtrays. Half-empty glasses smelled of hard spirits. Copper and silver coins lay in piles close at hand. The family were mostly Tura from the look of them, but more recent recruits came from the other lands of Ward, Tierzen, Sakura, Murati, or Artu, even Nikaniki. Male and female, they sat close to one another, tails and paws draped across each other's bodies. Their teeth sharp, they held their playing cards close to their chests. A tall Tura man folded his hand and stood up. "You guys pick a swell gong to do your visiting." He dressed in a man's clothes, but his tail floated free from the back of his trousers. I spoke for Javos. "You called the meeting." He shook his large, rather rectangular head, black fur closely trimmed. "What you pulled at the harbor last week." He put out his cigarette. "Mighty clever for jerks." He used the derogatory word for justicars on the street. "We came for pourparlers." "Damn jerks," another were-rat cursed. "What the blazes?" A large dog-like creature bounded up the stairs behind the bar and growled. He was the size of a man, but covered in mangy fur caked in grease. He stood up, with a prominent chest on tiny hind paws. "Who's been scaring away the master's customers?" "It's the size of a mastiff," Qiānfān whispered to me, the way a hunter might count the points on a buck. "And with the jaws of a bear." The smooth-talking were-rat replied, "You'll have to excuse us, my Diga Arziki. The boss has some business to discuss with the inspector." "The inspector?" Arziki barked nervously at us, but looked back and forth between Javos and the kitchen door. He kept licking his teeth. This spokesrat took a banliang out of his pocket. Circular, with a square hole in the center, the coin of the Armor Kingdom amounted to half an ounce of gold, or a month's wages for a skilled artisan. He slipped it into the paw of the toothy hyena. "Would you mind giving us some privacy?" "Yantsume! With dorks? Want to ruin my reputation?" Arziki's wife ran out of the kitchen. She grabbed the coin before her husband realized and nipped at his back. He yelped and ceded his place to her. But she was all cordiality to the were-rats. "Gafadamin! The master's always happy to serve the Alanis pack." "Thank you, mistress," the spokesrat replied. "We'll call if we need you." Mistress Arziki nipped at the master again, and he ran into the kitchen, yelping. "Take your time." As she retreated through the long bar along the rear wall, her predatory eyes kept shifting back and forth between the rats and us. She closed the door, but I was certain they were listening with their keen canine ears. The spokesrat met us at the door. We shook hands, or more precisely, I shook his paw. "Looks like you have a new recruit, Detective Rank. Care to introduce us?" "This is Captain Huang. You may recognize him from the harbor." "I can't say I've had the pleasure." The were-rat placed his fist in his palm, meaning they came in peace. "You don't think any of us were involved in those illegal proceedings?" Qiānfān returned a warrior's greeting, the hold-fist salute with an upright left hand. "Don't be shy now." He took Qiānfān's hand and shook it as we did among the kindred. "We won't bite." In spite of his good looks and respectable clothes, this spokesrat had those same sharp yellow fangs that pretended to be front teeth. Qiānfān cooperated, sizing him up. "So you say." There you go. That's a good start for a Wednesday. We're all friends now. The captain withdrew his hand, but the spokesrat was so smooth that we suddenly found him standing between us, with an arm on each of our shoulders, urging us towards the central table. The predators you should really be worried about, Captain, are watching from the kitchen. Who knows what they'll cook up next? I could see the mistress's brown eye and half muzzle at the crack of the kitchen door. The room smelled of fish. It was a little intimidating to be so outnumbered, but I had no intention of showing fear in front of Javos and Qiānfān. And you know the inspector, of course. A pleasure, the were-rat nodded. I'm the PR manager, by the way. Name's Rami. Public relations? I asked. Personal records. I drink the most. He finished what smelled like whiskey. So they gave me a title for it. He pointed with his empty glass at the round table. They were all there, all the chuckleheads who'd evaded us at the Sailmaker's door, plus one or two extras. Would you like to meet the whole clan? We're the inquest, I replied. We know everyone. Jatin the Shadow can get anything you need in or out of decision. I pronounced his name Jatin. He's usually standing right behind your boss, Ozanich. So much for the loyalty of a rat. Jatin stood up on a cane. Say again, eh? But he's not Tura, he's Urartu, from Tazagol, and his real name's Pauza, the Falcon. It's Jatin. You think you know all about us. Thugs emerged from adjacent rooms. These were-rats had once been Detention. Better than you know yourselves. You steal your clan names from real gangsters to make yourself sound menacing. But you're nothing but two-bit crooks. Take Dervis, the bookmaker. He's the Marathi clerk, holding nines over knights. The plump, red-furred were-rat folded his cards in frustration. What you doing, Rami? I'm drinking. Rami placed his glass down in front of the pretty Detention, who held the whiskey bottle. Give me another, sweetheart. Luci's the underage girl pouring the liquor, but you call her Bahar. Her poor family disowned her the moment they learned she'd joined your clan. Better make it a double, Angel. Rami shook his glass at her impatiently. Just my luck. A fat were-rat with eyeglasses and black and white fur folded his hand. I had three of a kind. And then there's Emin. He used to be a man of the Nikaniki, but he's just another rat now. Calls himself the Game Master. Manages all your illegal dealings, like this poker match. Then I turned to the Detention. The fifth player's your front man, Lee the Fence. He arranged this little tete-a-tete. He still looks like a person, so he's not really a member of the family, is he? Lee glared at me, without giving away the double entendre. You know the players, the Fence said coolly, but you don't know the game. There were maybe 10 other were-rats lurking around the perimeter, all local thugs. It's a bad idea, Dervy said. Rami took the drink. Why don't you have one with me, Dervy, and we can discuss it? I never mix business and pleasure. The bookmaker put out his cigar in protest. And I don't drink with jerks. Those were our orders, Jatin glared at me. Play it straight. But his claws said otherwise. The other were-rats were slowly making their way to block our exit. The inspector already knows everything he needs to know. Your bedfellows have all squealed, I lied. We could arrest every last one of you. Not with only 3 officers, Jatin observed. You think the inspector's scared of you? The Alanis clan were coyotes in Boyaskazan. Petty thugs, untouchables who begged on public squares, till one of you got cursed. Blessed. Jatin smiled widely, showing off his fangs. We were surrounded now. Justicars wiped out the real family years ago. A few got away, Rami winked. Imposters, a bunch of actors playing tough guys. You think this is a game, detective? Qiānfān pointed with his silver-tipped cane. We've got you on multiple felonies, smuggling, theft. Could be kidnapping, Rami replied, depending on your political views. What are you doing? Dervy snarled at Rami. What about the other counts, detective? Gambling, assault, manumission. Gratuitous play, I added. All that dancing on the wharf. So playing's illegal now too, Rami laughed. Don't forget endangering a minor, right, sweetheart? He winked at Bahar. All told, I concluded, more than enough to send you up the Moat River. For life. Javos stood unmoved behind me, twisting his wand. You traitor, the bookmaker yelled at Rami. You Ratsnake! Calm down, Dervy. The inspector won't arrest anyone tonight. The voice came from the stairs on our right. It was so deep and resonant, I was surprised to see that the sound came from this picture of feminine elegance and beauty. He knows what's best for the restoration of order. She was small, with dark hair and eyes, and smoking a cigarette. She glided along the walkway above the entrance to the Parlor of Destiny and descended the stairs at the front corner of the house. She was accompanied by a woman, as normal as you or I. Arm in arm, they supported each other. The mischief of rats moved away from the table as they approached. Qiānfān and Rami held out chairs. Once the two women sat, the other players followed suit, except Qiānfān and Rami, who stood behind them, hands on the back of their chairs, protectively. Detective Rank, Rami gestured at the silent partner. Allow me to introduce you to the lovely Gulizar. The human woman looked at me expressionless, her skin the color of rich soil. An Inquai from the lands of southern Sire, I guessed. I wonder how she'd found her way this far north. And this is Roxanne Alanis, the star of our little show. She crossed her legs so I could see her shapely, furry calves. Then she took a drag of her cigarette from the side of two sets of sharp teeth, yellowed from tobacco, and blew the smoke away from us, politely. Some kind of vice boss of the clan, I asked. There's no substitute for Ozani, Qiānfān insisted. He's the real boss of vice. But he's not in charge, Rami explained. Only a member of the family can be boss. Since when? I countered. Since always, Detective Rank. Roxy's voice had such lovely depth, perhaps from the heat of the cigarette. I felt flush looking at her in that elegant dress that hugged the curves of her shapely body. I found myself imagining what it might be like to fall into her embrace, like a plush toy on a dark night, filled with terrors. Roxy placed her paw on the hand of the Inquai woman, who looked upset, not scared. Are you here against your will? I asked chivalrously. Everyone laughed at me. Ghoulie loves Ozani as much as we do, Roxy replied. What she wants, what we all want, is to have our family back. Bahar offered a seat to me. I didn't take it. Look, Detective, Rami began again. You came here voluntarily. So did we. Why don't we all have a drink together and chat? Rat to man. I sat. Javos stayed standing, observing. Qiānfān was ready to spring into action at the slightest provocation. Bahar leaned against me as she placed 3 glasses on the table. I could smell the alcohol on her breath, feel the warmth of her fur, see her sharp teeth so close to my neck. Ghoulie waved off the drink. Bahar poured one for Roxy and one for me. Are you sure you're okay? I asked Ghoulie again. Roxy laughed. What must you think of us? Ghoulie's married to our Ozani, aren't you, dear? Happily, she replied with a strong Inkoy accent. I got confused. Then why is she not a member of our mischief? Roxy looked at her. That's the way Ghoulie wants it. We respect her independence. You don't give slaves the same consideration, Qiānfān objected. That's business, Roxy clarified. Ghoulie's family. Roxy gave her a hug with one arm. Why the sudden urge to share? I asked. I believe in honesty, Roxy replied. Between partners. Excuse me? I'm sure you're hungry. Not this late. Heartburn. Rats get hungry at night. Should we have soup, detective, or something else? A wave of chattering teeth swept through the room. Javos had to hold Qiānfān's arm to stop him from reacting. Soup it is. Rami whistled through his long incisors. I expected to see one of those ugly hyenas emerge from the kitchen, but to my dismay, it was Mrs. Lee who carried out the tray. Don't you like soup? Roxy asked. No, Fact was, I got angry. Lee should have spared his wife any direct contact with these monsters. I couldn't fathom what it took for a woman of such piety to play the role that the fates had set for her. It took me an instant too long to regain my composure. Mrs. Lee came to my aid. Don't you like soup? In the dark of the inn, her eyes once again seemed more purple than blue. I love soup. What kind? She set a bowl for me. Traditional Wednesday meal. Snake and rat in the same pot. Roxy smiled. How wonderful. Thank you, my dear. Mrs. Lee placed a bowl and spoon in front of the boss, too. Careful, it's very hot. Then she reassured me. It's really swamp eel and bamboo rat. Tastes like rabbit. I'm not a shy eater, but I was reluctant to put either in my mouth. Enjoy your meal, detective. Roxy began blowing on hers. They were not serving me food for my health. Aren't bamboo rats pests? Roxy stirred the soup with her spoon. They do eat the roots of bamboo trees, which kills the plant. The Detention use bamboo for hundreds of things. Houses, furniture, fishing rods, nets. Bamboo shoots flavor the soup. She ate one. Why don't you exterminate them? Kill all the vermin. I was trying to be provocative. Bamboo rats dig networks of long tunnels, detective. Clever little rats. She slurped her soup. There's always another tunnel to escape through. Underground tunnels? Think of it like one enormous network of underland roads. She ate more soup. I nearly dropped my spoon. Underland roads, like the one leading fugitive slaves to freedom? I blurted out. All I'm saying, detective, is that this is excellent soup. You've outdone yourself, Mrs. Lee. The swamp eel and the bamboo rat have blended harmoniously. Eat, detective. Your soup is growing cold. My thoughts were racing now. Networks, you say? Right under your feet, detective. I took a spoonful. It was delicious. Captain Huang, isn't there a local proverb among the Detention? Snake and rat in one nest? She shu iwo, Qiānfān translated. A collusion between two villains. I looked at the bookmaker. A perfect metaphor for a bunch of rat snakes. Roxy pretended to be offended. Such unpleasant language. What else would you call them? Middlemen? Middle rats, Dervy corrected. You're helping Manu to find the underland. For a small fee, Rami interjected. and the Underland leads them to freedom. You get paid, and they take most of the risk. I took a spoonful of soup, snake and rat in one bite. Roxy took out a cigarette. Well done, detective. The shadow lit it for her from behind. She took a large drag and blew smoke out into the room. That's our offer. Just to be sure, I drank the rich broth. Spell it out for me. You give us back our family, we give you the Underland. I took another slow spoonful of Mrs. Lee's delicious soup. I tried to think like Javos, say what he would say. If only I could get the right information from them, we might break the back of this criminal collusion, once and for all. I'm not surprised that rats would betray their friends, I said after I was done chewing, but I don't believe for a moment that you'll give up your best source of income. I nodded at Chetin. All the smuggling and gambling was only a side hustle. Your concern for our welfare is refreshing, Roxy replied. I'm sure we can come to an arrangement, Rami suggested. It's a nice fairy tale, I replied. We need proof. Rami looked at Roxy, who looked at Dervy, who looked away. Don't make me, boss. Show them, she ordered. But they're jerks. Dervy slammed a fist on the table. Trust the boss, eh? Chetin coaxed him, rubbing his shoulder. The bookmaker looked at Roxy, sighed, and slipped a leather-bound ledger from under the table. But he could not convince himself to hand it to me, so he gave it to Bahar instead. That's my life's work in there, the game master said. Our entire operation. We'll be all right, Rami said, patting Emmy's shoulder. Bahar handed the ledger to me, and I opened it. It was all there. Every smuggled item, every bribed officer. First Minister Mung's on the take, even some of our own judges. With this book in our possession, I realized, we could end corruption in the entire Armor Kingdom. All this time, Javos stayed in the shadows, twisting his wand behind his back. He stared at Roxanne and Alanis like they were betting on a poker hand, each sure they had the winning cards. I came to the largest tab in the book, page after page of fugitives. Thousands. I flipped through them with a sense of the sublime. But these lists, they date back decades, I said out loud. Roxy stared at the inspector. Keep reading, detective. Most of the Manu were Qiānfān and Sakura, of course. Some also had Marathi or Tura names. Then I noticed no small number of serfs from the lands of Nod and Sire and Nej, some even from Filk. The slave trade no doubt brought some of them to decision, but it could not account for all of them, which meant that some of these fugitives had fled here on their own in the hope of finding sanctuary in the north. This can't be. Keep reading, detective. On the list of emancipated chattel, I found several columns. Some listed a fee paid by the Underland for the delivery of the Manu. For others, the fee was not paid. There was a line through the name. I guessed those fugitives were dead. For maybe a third of them, though, there was a fee listed in a separate column with another name next to it. I recognized their accomplices immediately. You rat bastards! You sell some of these poor souls back to our own bounty hunters. Independent contractors, Emmy smiled. Paid from the tithes of the faithful. That's your business, Rami shrugged. This is ours. I was disgusted, outraged. I was no abolitionist. I still believed in the restoration of order, but the thought of a slave making it all the way here from farthest Filk, only to be used to blackmail the Underland or sold for a profit to bounty hunters. Who made you into gods? that you decide who is free and who is not. Whoever pays more, Derby smiled, now for the first time that evening. That's who. Either way, I grew cold. You get paid. That's right, detective. Derby leaned in, placing both paws on the table. Either way. You ratsnakes. You profit off the most vulnerable. Not correct, Derby raised a rat finger. We profit off the underland and the inquest. The bounty hunters are happy to give us a percentage, Emmy insisted. It's perfectly legal. But that's all history. Rami tried to regain control over the conversation. Now that we have this, I held tightly onto the ledger. You've got the goods on us now, Rami said. I'll give you that. But you still have all those swamp eels. Slippery little devils. You think they're going to stop running just because you've closed up our shop? You think those crazy abolitionists are going to stop trying to help them get free? They won't, Qiānfān insisted. At least we'll have put a stop to your mischief, I countered. See, that's where you're wrong, detective. We're closing one shop and opening another across town. I don't follow. Our little family business will be offering hope to those poor souls directly, Rami explained. They'll do anything to be forgotten by the Ring Empire. You won't risk your necks. No, we won't, because we won't show them the way north. Leastways, not all of them. You would leave fugitives in the vast wood to die? They won't even leave town. Rami placed his empty glass back on the table. We're going to deliver them to you instead. Us. I was flabbergasted. And we'll make more money than ever before. You want to capture fugitive slaves for the inquest? For a fee, Rami corrected. Cutting out the middleman means more profit. Snake and rat in the same bowl, Emmy snarled. Delicious as always. Roxy handed her bowl back to Mrs. Lee, who also grabbed the spoon. A chattering of fanged teeth circulated around the room. Only Mrs. Lee seemed to look at me with a friendly face. You want the inspector to commission monsters as bounty hunters? The game master defended his game. We've been doing your dirty work for years. They're bonded by the emperor himself, I insisted. They can enter any premises in pursuit of a fugitive, even the castle of the king. I've always wanted an imperial commission, the shadow smirked. Qiānfān, deputy jerk, Derby mocked, mispronouncing the Torah ch sound as a j. I knew that the inspector could never accept such terms. We're done here. I stood up. The situation deteriorated quickly. That's mine, Derby snatched the ledger back out of my hands. Qiānfān drew his wand in response to what he thought was a threat. Suddenly, we had nowhere to move. Each of us had 5 thugs on us, claws and teeth extended. I began to sweat. Rami held his family back. Okay, forget the bounties. We'll negotiate a price later. It's not a matter of price. We don't want to work with you either, but we can show you we can be trusted. Rami moved the thugs away from me. Qiānfān pushed Qiānfān back with the sharp tip of his cane. Javos was still surrounded, but he did not flinch. He spoke for the first time. How? Rami nodded. The mischief retreated into the corners. I, too, moved out of Javos' way. We can show you where we hand off the swamp eels to the underland. That's not enough, Javos replied. What would be enough, Inspector? Their entire leadership. Won't work, the game master interjected. Not with underlanders. The shadow moved back behind Guli. The spokesrat stood next to the boss. We've never met them in person. They don't trust us." "Why am I not surprised?" Javos said dryly. "The Underlanders are paranoid. One cell doesn't even know the names of the other cells." "Demand protection money." I saw where Javos was going. "Either they meet you face to face," I added, standing beside him, "or you'll expose them." "It's a good story." Rami turned to Roxy first. She nodded her approval. The game master calculated the risks. "It could work." "All right, then." The bookmaker and the shadow fell in line. The spokesrat turned to the fence. "Can you make the arrangements?" The fence looked back at him and then stole a glance at me. "Do your job. I'll do mine." Roxy stood up. "I want them all back. Not just Ozani. Everyone you arrested last week. Hassani and Meho, Ipek and Nuri." Chetin punctuated their names with his cane. "The smugglers? They're pups. They were just making their bones." "We've already sent them to the Central Carceral Complex." "A deal's a deal," the game master interjected. "We're giving you the entire Underland. We get back the whole Alanis clan." "Nothing less," Roxy insisted. I realized that this mischief operated according to a set of rules not unlike our laws, though criminal in purpose. In some diabolical way, these were monsters of order, not chaos. The inspector stood for a long time, considering, calculating. "One rat for another." "But, Inspector," Qiānfān protested, "we've only just arrested them." Javos persisted. "I will release one member of the Alanis clan for each Underlander I lock behind bars." "Starting with Ozani," Rami made sure. "I swear it." "And their criminal records get expunged," Rami threw in for good measure. "Free and clear," Javos promised. I could hardly believe it. Javos appeared at every hearing. He worked to deny parole, not ensure early release. Was this mercy, I wondered? I shook my head in disbelief. So did Derby, clutching onto his ledger. But Roxy extended her paw. "What do you say, Inspector? Do we have a deal? Shall we make some Ratsnake soup?" Javos kept his hands behind his back. "You have my word." She withdrew her hand with forbearance. "And you have mine." "Then it's settled." Rami slapped Emmy on the back. "Shall we drink on it?" He pushed the two glasses back towards Bahar to fill. Chetin smiled darkly. "It'll be a pleasure doing business with you, Inspector." "I assure you," Javos left the glass on the table, "the pleasure will be all mine." "Congratulations, Javos, darling." Roxy Alanis smiled, taking the second glass for herself. "You're about to become famous. The man who captured the Underland." "To the restoration of order." Rami raised his glass to the inspector. Roxy clinked glasses with him. "To the restoration of order." Thank you for listening to this podcast. Look for the next episode, Hugo and the Smokehouse, and the novel Detention, Book 1 of the Tales of the Fastbrækers. You can visit thepætheon.com for free maps, glossaries, and more, or support this project at ko-fi.com/thepætheon for access to Discord, hard copies, role-playing adventures, and more. Music created by Gerbob for the Pætheon LLC. The Pætheon and the Fastbrækers are registered trademarks of the Pætheon LLC. No part of this story or audio recording may be reproduced or transmitted on any medium for any reason without permission of the Pætheon LLC. Hugo and the Ratsnake Soup. What came out October 2025. Copyright 2025, the Pætheon LLC. All rights reserved.